Imagine San Francisco in 2012. Crypto is still underground, experimental, uncertain. Bitcoin must be 3 years old, and most people don't know what it's for. But one small startup thinks they've cracked open something big: how to move money. Not in 3 days, not through 5 different middlemen, but instantly across the world at a fraction of the cost, using a digital asset called XRP. That startup is Ripple Labs. What began as a bold idea has become one of crypto's most debated and enduring stories. Today we are diving into the Ripple saga, from tech breakthroughs to courtroom battles, and what it means for the future of XRP. Now, Ripple did not start with crypto. Back in 2004, a Canadian developer named Ryan Fugger envisioned a peer to peer payment system based on trust lines. Think of it as Google Pay meets IOUs, which existed years before Bitcoin's birth. Fast forward to 2012. Jed McCaleb and Chris Larson took that early idea and turned it into something much larger: a decentralized payments network powered by a brand new token, XRP. By 2013, the XRP ledger was live, and unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, this ledger was not just about decentralization. It was built for speed and scale. We are talking 10,000 plus transactions per second, near zero fees, and settlement times in seconds. While most crypto projects targeted retail users and speculation, Ripple went after the banks. They wanted to replace Swift with blockchain rails. Swift is a 50-year-old messaging system used by financial institutions. In other words, Ripple was not just building a new currency, they were trying to build a new financial infrastructure. So, what would be their strategy? Basically, to play nice with traditional finance. It forged partnerships with banking giants like Santander Group and American Express. It even developed a private version of the XRP ledger tailored specifically for central banks. And by 2018, Ripple was not just another crypto project. It was a serious fintech player. Its token, XRP, became the third largest cryptocurrency by market cap, trailing only Bitcoin and Ethereum. But then came the crash. Just as Bitcoin began hitting all-time highs, the US Securities and Exchange Commission dropped a bombshell. It sued Ripple Labs, alleging that XRP was an unregistered security and that Ripple had illegally raised over $1.3 billion since 2013. The case rested on an old but powerful piece of legal machinery: the Securities Act of 1933. Specifically, the SEC argued that XRP sales, especially to institutional investors, were actually investment contracts that should have been registered with the agency. No fraud, no Ponzi, just a technical but devastating accusation that Ripple did not follow the paperwork. Obviously, there was a fallout. XRP was delisted from major exchanges like Coinbase. Its price tanked, and uncertainty loomed large over its future. So let's talk about Ripple's defense. XRP is not a security. Ripple's counter was clear. Its defense was that XRP is a currency, not a security. It pointed out that XRP's sale on public exchanges, the kind retail investors access, were not arranged as investment contracts. There were no promises of profits, no official issuer, and no Howey test violation, they argued. To Ripple, this was not a fraud. It was a victimless violation. And they weren't going down without a fight. What followed was one of the most high profile legal battles in crypto history. Now, in July 2023, Judge Annalisa Torres delivers a landmark and nuanced ruling. She agreed with Ripple. Well, sort of. Retail sales of XRP on exchanges are not securities. And institutional sales, that is $728 million sold through private deals, they are securities. The verdict gave Ripple a partial victory and set a precedent. Not all crypto tokens are securities, at least not in all contexts. That alone shook the crypto industry and gave XRP a fresh breath of legitimacy. So, is this a happy ending? Not quite. Now, here's where things get interesting. After some back and forth appeals, both Ripple and the SEC seemed ready to settle. In May 2025, they agreed to a $50 million fine, far below the SEC's original $2 billion demand. Ripple would get back $75 million of its escrowed funds. But just when it seemed over, on May 15th, Judge Torres rejected the motion to finalize the deal, citing procedural issues. The case is still active in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. The SEC has until June 16th, 2025 to file a status report. Until then, the future remains in the limbo. Despite the legal clouds, Ripple is pushing forward. It's launching a stablecoin called Ripple USD, partnering with banks like Unicambio and Zand Bank. And perhaps the most notable partnership, CME Group. It launched XRP futures in May 2025, signaling strong institutional demand. Even the talk of XRP ETF is gaining traction. But what does all this tell us? Well, the tech is still respected. The use case, global payments, that is still relevant. And if the courts finally clear the fog, XRP may get a second wind. So, what do you think? Is Ripple a rogue actor or a regulatory scapegoat? Maybe it's neither. Maybe Ripple is what happens when traditional finance meets crypto revolution. And no one's quite sure which rule book to use. What is clear is that Ripple did not just build a fast payment system. It built a whole courtroom case that could define how crypto is or could be regulated in the US for years to come. The outcome is still pending, but in the meantime, XRP lives on, quietly rebuilding one partnership, one protocol, one payment rail at a time. That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to follow and share it with a friend. And remember, this podcast does not give investment advice, just stories and signal from the evolving world of crypto. Thanks for tuning in to Block Recap. See you next time.